Hi, so I'm typing this all out in a bit of a hurry. Please ignore any typos or mistakes. So I'm in a total dilemma regarding a situation with my father and my uncle. Here's the deal. I'm getting married in a couple of months. I got engaged recently, but instead of asking my father to walk me down the aisle, I decided to ask my uncle. Traditionally, I know it's usually the dad who does this, but my situation is a bit different. My uncle has actually been more of a father to me, and my dad and I have started reconnecting only for the past couple of years. My uncle is my mom's younger brother, and he's the one who basically took over when my dad abandoned my mom with me and my siblings. My parents were still in college when they had me, and somehow they scraped by with the support of my grandparents. They were in their final years of college when they had me, and soon enough they got married. 2 years later, they had my brother, and 9 years after me, quite unexpectedly, they had my younger sister, who was a bit of a surprise. Things were fine for a while. But when my sister was around 3 years old, my dad's company ran into a bit of financial trouble. So at the time, my mom was handling all the expenses, but her job did not pay as well as my dad's. It was not really her fault because she had spent most of her life taking care of us and had only started working a few years before my sister was born. So clearly, she never had a chance to make the same kind of progress that my dad did. But my father never understood that, even though my mom was trying her best and so was my dad. My father was the one who was used to a certain kind of lifestyle by then and didn't like the fact that we were having to make adjustments. My parents started fighting a lot, almost every day, and it was almost always about money. It would start off about something very petty, but then we would always come back to the same place: money. It got tiring, and then one day when I was 15, my dad just left. We waited for him to come back. My mom made a lot of phone calls, but the only thing that we received were divorce papers a couple of days later. And it was not just a divorce, he also gave up custody of the three of us and walked away after committing a measly amount of alimony and child support. By then, things between my parents had soured to the extent where my mom didn't even fight for her marriage. She had just given up. And she could have fought for a higher amount of child support, but there was no point because by then my dad's company had pretty much just ran itself into the ground. So we just made our peace with the circumstances, although I found it very difficult to understand why he had to leave all of us. He basically just abandoned our family, and it hurt. It also made things 10 times more difficult for my mom because it's not like she was getting a lot of financial support. And with 3 kids, she needed all the help that she could get. So that's where my uncle stepped in. He decided to move in with us so that he could help out with the household chores, taking care of us, particularly of my sister, who was still very young, while my mom tried to get ahead at work and bring home more money. So this was the arrangement that we had after my dad abandoned us, and we barely even had time to process things because we couldn't let the bills pile up. Even my brother and I took up part-time jobs just for the summer so that we could help out, and that's how we went on. After the divorce, for many years, my dad never looked back and we didn't hear from him. I did visit my paternal grandparents occasionally, but even they had no idea what he was up to. He had basically just cut us all off and started anew. And it hurt that he didn't think that his own children were worth the trouble of keeping in touch with or even visiting once in a while. But that's how it was, and we learned to keep our mouths shut and just deal with it. Anyway, I'm 25 now, and I'm about to get married. And since my mom isn't around anymore, it was really important for my dad to be here. But right now, I don't know what to do. I lost my mom 3 years ago to a heart attack. And it was actually at her funeral that my dad and I finally reconnected. My siblings were not that quick to forgive, but I wanted to give him a chance. So for the past 3 years, we have been actively working on mending our relationship, and it's been going well. But when he realized that I hadn't asked him to walk me down the aisle, he confronted me about it, and I told him that I had asked my uncle instead. He lost it at me. He told me he thought that since we had mended our relationship quite a bit, he thought that he would be the one walking me down. And it was a big deal for him because at the end of the day, I was his daughter and my uncle was just that, an uncle. He could never be a father figure, but that was his belief. And as far as I was concerned, my uncle had been a huge part of our lives, and I would definitely want him to walk me down the aisle. I tried to get my dad to understand it, but he was very upset right now, and has even been saying that it's pretty clear that I still haven't forgiven him, even though I've pretended that I have. But if I'm holding the past against him even now and refusing to let him walk me down the aisle, which is his right as a father according to him, then all the efforts that both of us have put into our relationship in the past 3 years have obviously been pointless because I clearly don't see him as a father. And if that's the case, he doesn't feel comfortable even attending my wedding. This is what he's been saying, and I'm seriously in such a weird spot right now. I don't know what to do. I don't want to hurt my dad, but I've already asked my uncle, and to be very honest, I think he's the one who deserves to walk me down the aisle more than my dad does. I just don't know how to get it through to my father without hurting his feelings even more. It's come to a point where I feel like I'm the bad guy here for making my dad feel like I had completely forgiven and forgotten everything that had happened in the past. Obviously, something like that cannot be forgiven within just 3 years, no matter how hard I try. Anyway, AITA for asking my uncle to walk me down the aisle instead of my father, even after we had been working on mending our relationship in recent years. Update 1. So I've gone through the comments and have even spoken to my siblings and my fiance, and everyone is of the same opinion. Literally every single person that I've discussed this with, including my maid of honor, who's been my best friend since high school, has told me that if I want my uncle to walk me down the aisle, and I have every right to ask him and not my father, and I don't owe it to my dad to have him walk me down the aisle, even if we have been working on our relationship. And you know what? I think that's true. Just because we've been working on mending our relationship doesn't mean that it's all perfect now. I don't think I'll ever be able to forget what happened because he literally abandoned our family and never even looked back until my mom passed away. That's almost 7 years of my life, and that's a huge chunk for a father to miss. He wasn't there when I graduated high school. He wasn't there when I left for college, and he wasn't there when I graduated college. But my mom was there for me every step of the way. And with her, my uncle was also there for me. So I think it's only fair for me to ask him and not my dad. And if my father is so upset about it, then I guess he can choose not to attend. But it'll just be a reflection of who he is, since it will just show me that he's just as selfish as he used to be and nothing has changed. And if he seriously doesn't attend my wedding over this, then I'm definitely never giving him a second chance ever again. I'll be done with him for good this time. Update 2. So it's been a couple of days since my last update, and today, because my dad finally decided to talk to me about what I had chosen, and I made it very clear that I was not going to change my mind, I told him as politely as I could that I really appreciated the fact that it meant so much to him that he was willing to fight to walk me down the aisle. But at the end of the day, whatever my uncle has done for me, I can't ever forget that. So it's very important for me that he walks me down the aisle because I can't care less about traditions or anything. But this is something that's important to me and he just has to deal with it. If he can't accept it, then that's on him and not on me. And I was very polite about this, mind you, so he had no reason to lose his mind at me. But he did. That's exactly what happened. And even though he was on a phone call, I felt like he was literally in the room, shouting at me because that's how loud he was being on the phone. He was very aggressive about the whole thing, and he told me that if this is how I was going to play it, then he didn't want to have any relationship with me for the rest of his life anyway. And he started making it sound like he was the one who had given me a chance by choosing to reconnect with us, even though that was the other way around. It would have been very easy for me to say that, no, I don't want to have anything to do with him after my mom's funeral, because as it is, by then, we had already learned to live without him. In fact, that's what my siblings wanted. They are still not very close to him and they're quite wary around him, so I really could have done that. But I chose to give him a chance. However, on the phone, he was making it sound like he was the one who had chosen to come back to us and do us a favor by doing that. He could have just not done it, if that's how he looked at the situation. And he was really not doing us a favor by coming back at that point in time. And let's be real about that. I was 22 when Mom passed. My brother was 20 and my sister was 13. So she wasn't exactly grown up, but still old enough to understand things. And all of us understood that he had abandoned us and didn't want us in his life at that point in time. So we had all learned one thing for sure, that we couldn't count on him. So his choice to come back was entirely his own. He wasn't doing us a favor because by then both my brother and I were pretty grown up and could handle our lives, and of course our uncle had been there all along. So this new nonsense about him choosing us 3 years ago was just that. It was pure nonsense. So anyway, when I told him that he had not chosen us, in any sense of the word, he had just come back because he felt guilty. And we were the ones who had chosen to forgive him. He couldn't handle that either. He started yelling at me even more loudly, saying that I was ungrateful, claiming that I didn't even deserve to be his daughter, and that he had made the right choice all those years ago by leaving us behind, because clearly we did not value him at all, and he started saying that it was definitely our mother who had raised us to hate him like that. He started accusing our mom of making us turn out like this, which is completely untrue. Our mom did not have to make us hate him. He did that just by himself. In fact, after he left, our mother hardly even spoke about him. She didn't bring it up at all, so let alone bad-mouthing him. She pretended like he never existed because I know how hurt she was. Back then, I didn't truly understand, but now that I think about it, I know she must have been really hurt, and it probably was very difficult for her not to talk about it at all. If she actually wanted to, it would have been more than easy for her to turn us against him. But she chose not to. She took the higher road, so he had no right to say that about her. And that was where I drew the line. Before he could say anything else, I cut him off. And I told him that I was done talking to him and that he was no longer required to be present at my wedding anymore because clearly he did not respect me. He did not respect my family, and I don't want somebody like that attending something so important to me. My wedding is a day when I really want to be happy, and I only want my loved ones around me, and I only want people who actually genuinely love and care for me to be there. And clearly he's not one of them, so I told him that I was done arguing with him, and before he could say anything, I hung up and blocked him. That was that for today, and I'm hoping that he doesn't reach out again because I honestly just can't deal with this anymore. Update 3. Hey everybody, so it's been a couple of days since I blocked my father, and he has tried every trick in the book to try and get back in touch with me since then. I don't understand why he's trying so hard because I think it was He himself who said that if he was not going to get the opportunity to walk me down the aisle, then he was not going to show up at all. So I don't understand why he's so desperate to talk to me again, because I think he was pretty clear on what he wanted. And now he's not going to get it, no matter what he says. I don't understand what he has to say anymore. Anyway, he's been sending me emails, he's been texting and trying to call me from different numbers, and he has even had a couple of members from his side of the family try to contact me and tell me that I really need to talk to my father because he doesn't want to lose out on the opportunity of attending my wedding. And whatever he had said the other day, it was just in a fit of anger, and he didn't really mean any of it. What he doesn't understand is that it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter whether he said it in a fit of anger or not, because at the end of the day, he still said it. And being angry at somebody doesn't just give people the license to say whatever they want and get away with it. That's not cool at all. Besides, right now, I just need some space. And he needs to understand that. Obviously, I would want nothing more than to be able to sort things out with him, because honestly, I want my wedding to go smoothly and according to plan. I just wish that he could understand what I want and respect my wishes instead of trying to get things done his way. For now, though, I just want him to stay away from me and give me some space to think about things and at least process it. Just because he wants to apologize right now doesn't mean that I have to hear him out and accept all of it right now. I don't have to function on his terms and constantly behave how he wants me to. It's just tiring that he doesn't understand all of this. And he treats me like I'm still a child or something. I'm really not. And he needs to understand and respect the fact that I'm beyond his control. And if he doesn't get it, then I think it's better for us not to keep in touch anyway. So I'm going to give it a couple of days, and I'm going to hope that he learns and comes to accept this very simple and basic thing. Update 4. Hi everybody. I'm honestly so sick of dealing with all this crap right now. I'm supposed to be happily planning my wedding at the moment, and instead I'm dealing with all the troubles that my dad is stirring up for me on purpose. He knows that the only reason I've been avoiding him is because I just need some space. He's obviously old enough to understand that, but he clearly doesn't care enough to respect that. So far, he had only restricted the drama to me, himself, and a couple of members of his family who had bothered to contact me on his behalf. And when none of that worked, he decided that he was going to go the absolute opposite way and try to make me even more upset than I already am with him. What he did was he contacted my uncle, which was already totally unnecessary because my uncle and my dad obviously don't get along at all. My dad knows that my uncle loathes him, and the only reason he's even put up with him is because I've tried to maintain the peace of the family. But apart from that, my uncle really can't stand the sight of my father, and I don't blame him, because if anybody treated one of my siblings that way, I wouldn't forgive them either. And yet, in spite of having a relationship like this with him, my dad thought that it would be completely fine for him to call my uncle up and tell him that I was not talking to him because I was upset with him, and ask my uncle to try and convince me to get him to talk to him somehow. Obviously, my uncle was pretty annoyed at this, but he also couldn't restrain his curiosity, so he did end up asking my father exactly what all of this was about and why we were fighting. So my dad told him the truth, which I had been keeping from my uncle so far, because really my uncle doesn't need to know what's been going on, especially when it's concerning him. I didn't want him to feel hurt that my dad feels that he shouldn't be the one walking me down the aisle simply on the basis of a biological technicality. Besides, I didn't want my uncle to be dragged into any of the drama in the first place. But thanks to my dad, it ended up happening anyway, regardless of what I wanted. However, I'm very lucky that my uncle didn't seem to care about any of it at all. He just told me exactly what had happened and said that he was very glad I had chosen him over my dad, and had even been fighting against my father, even though I had only just managed to repair my relationship with him a little in the past couple of years. So I was putting that at stake for him, and he said that he really appreciated all of it. And then he went on to tell me that if I really wanted to, then I could definitely ask my father to walk me down the aisle instead, because otherwise the relationship that we had been able to repair so far would fall apart once again. And in spite of his feelings towards my dad, he did not want to deny me the chance of eventually having a good relationship with my father in the long run. I could see that it was really hard for him to say that to me, but he was trying to do the right thing. And that just got me so emotional, because it just convinced me that I had made the right choice by choosing my uncle over my father. He was willing to give up something that meant so much to him, just so that I would have a chance at having a peaceful and drama-free wedding, and he was even willing to give my father a chance, just because he thought that that's what I would want. If that's not being a father figure, then I don't know what else, and I told him that there was no need for him to be so magnanimous about this whole thing, because my father was not being that way at all. And in all probability, my dad had called my uncle just to let him know, so that my uncle himself would step aside and he would be able to take over that position of walking me down the aisle. Not because it meant anything to him, but just because of his own idea of power play or whatever. Well, newsflash. He's not going to get his way, at least not this time, because I've told my uncle that he's the one that I've chosen for this. And I know that that's what my mom would want as well. So I'm not changing my mind about that. And if my father was really serious about repairing our relationship, then he wouldn't be bent on this one thing. I would instead try to accept my decision and be happy that he'll be there for me instead of making the wedding about himself. And if he can't do that, then again, like I've been saying all along, it's really not my problem, and it's his. It's not my uncle's problem either, so he doesn't have to deal with it. I think my father has let me down enough times, but this will be the last. My siblings never even gave him a chance when he tried to come back into our lives and reconnect. But I did. And I'll have the satisfaction of knowing that at least I tried. And he will have to live with the fact that he had a chance and he screwed it up for himself. Update 5. Hey, so it's been a couple of months since my last update, and there's just 1 week to go before my wedding. Obviously, since I haven't been posting, I think it's particular that I haven't had any interactions with my dad since I blocked him. He tried, not just once, but many, many times to get through to me, but I haven't let him talk to me because honestly, after one point in time, I just wanted to be done with it. I was engaged, I was planning my wedding, and I really wanted to be happy, and he was getting in the way of that. And in the past, when we were kids, he never cared about the fact that we would be hurt if he abandoned us. All he cared about was his own happiness. So why is it so wrong for me to do the same to him as an adult? He can live his own life the way he used to, because even I'm used to living without him, and so I decided to cut him out of my life once again. For a couple of months he kept trying, but then he just stopped, and honestly, I was just relieved. I didn't feel bad or anything. Anyway, since then I've been pretty happy and I'm really excited to be getting married. Now that there's just 1 week to go, he passed on a message to me through my paternal grandparents, who have actually always been a part of my life, regardless of his presence. And just for the record, they have also been supportive of me in whatever I have decided for myself, even though their son wasn't happy about it. So I don't hold my grandparents responsible for any of this. Anyway, coming to the point, my dad spoke to my grandparents and told them that he wanted them to be there for me, but because so much had happened, he didn't think that it would be appropriate for him to attend anymore. And he was pretty sure that even I didn't want him there, so he would stay away. But he wanted me to know that I had his blessings with him always, and he wanted me to be happy. And apparently he's also moving to Singapore by the end of the year because of newer and better work opportunities. Thanks to a friend of his who has offered him the position of a partner in his company down there. And it's legit. I even looked it up. Well, good for him. I guess both of us will be starting new chapters in our lives, and I don't think that I'll be speaking to him anytime soon. And the same goes for him. But at least we wish each other well, even after all this drama. I think that's the most that we can ask for at this point in time. Update 6. Hi everybody. So 2 days ago I finally got married and it still feels unreal. My uncle walked me down the aisle and I had a seat set aside for my mom, and it was just very emotional and beautiful at the same time. But yes, I'm super happy right now, and my husband and I are having the time of our lives. He also told me that last evening he received an email from an email address that he didn't recognize. And when he opened it, he figured that it was from my dad. So we read it together, and basically it was just my dad congratulating me and my husband, saying that he was really proud of both of us and he wanted to give us some space right now. So he wasn't going to visit, and neither was he going to ask us to come and see him. But whenever we wanted to, he would like for us to have dinner with him before he left for Singapore. Right now, I don't know if I'm going to do that. I'm just enjoying my life as a newlywed, but I guess I'll give it some thought after my honeymoon. For now, though, the only thing that I'm interested in is making the most of my time right now. And yeah, I'm just too happy to let myself be bothered by anything else. Thank you so much to everybody who's been reading all my updates. Thank you so much to everyone who's been so supportive of me. It really means the world to me, but for now, I think I'll be signing off so that I can live in the moment. See ya. Stay tuned for more stories from our girl relationships.